What better way to start the CPL season than talking with the head coach of your reigning champions, Forge FC. Bobby Smyrniotis joins us now. Bobby, how's it going?
Everything is good.
That's what I love to hear.
Excited as you are to get started.
That's what I love to hear. I want to just start here. You have obviously had tons of success in the CPL, 3-time champion in 4 years already. What's kind of your mindset going into this season with the club?
Yeah, I think when you set a standard within an organization, both on and off the field, you want to find those incremental gains each year. So the standard is high with us. We're obviously a club that's competing for championships on a yearly basis, and now we need to find that extra level of motivation to keep it going.
Is there any difference heading into this preseason? Have you had any changes, or are you trying to keep the same mindset and try to keep that foundation that Forge has built over the first 4 seasons of the league?
Yeah, I think every year, if you look at this team, we evolve. I think we look at little things tactically on how we can get better. Both with the personnel that we have and just also within ourselves as a coaching staff. Different ideas, different things that we can do. Last year was obviously a very successful season, and I think right now it's not about reinventing the wheel in this off-season and if we look at the preseason, but it's about being a more efficient team, more consistent team, and getting those 10% increases in certain parts of the field that we want with the group.
You mentioned the personnel that you have, and obviously one of the big off-season moves that you made was actually just bringing back David Chouanier and replacing a key player in Crutzen. How has the team kind of come together, and how important was it to make those 2 moves?
Yeah, it was important for us. Last year we had quite a bit of a turnover, the biggest turnover we've had with Forge in the 2022 season. And this year it was about maintaining balance. When you look at a player like David Chouanier, he's at a perfect age, to be a pillar of this club going forward. And we know that players have ambitions and different things of moving on. But if a player like him is staying in this league, we want to make sure that he's playing for Forge FC. I think he's had a successful 4 years, and he's important to us going forward. And then on the flip side, we lose a very good player, one of our leaders in Daniel Crutzen, who last year played 4 matches for us in what was a very successful season. We're able to bring in another very good central defender in Manjakar James, and it gives us an ability to go after our goals. And when we look at that, it's to make sure that this club in 2024 is playing Champions League football.
Well, that's just where I was going to go next. In conversation with head coach of Forge FC, Bobby Smyrniotis. And Bobby, you mentioned the Champions League. How important would it be for you guys to have success in the Champions League? And going into year 5, how important is it for you guys to get back there next year as well?
Yeah, I think one of the driving factors of this team, and you look at the players when they've come in from day one as champions from 2022, this is the first year that Forge won't be playing in any continental competition. That's been something that's been massive to our club. That's 18 games in the CONCACAF region over those 4 seasons between CONCACAF League and Champions League. Players in this club know the prestige of being part of those competitions, and I think that's the driving force to make sure that the club's back there in 2024.
You guys have had so much success in the first 4 years, obviously finishing first or second every single season in the regular season. How important is it to get off to a hot start, to try to level the field right out of the gate to get your guys going?
If I've learned something over these first 4 years, it's that the first 2 weeks will not settle what's going to happen in the end. Maybe that trend changes. But I think it's about consistency. That's the most important thing. If you can find that consistency early on, that's great. But you've got to find that consistency throughout the season. And, we've seen each and every year that moves a little bit differently. Small little fact is Forge has never won an opening game in 4 years. It hasn't deterred us from being successful later on. Of course, you want to come out of the gate. You want to be doing everything well. But it's a 28-game season, and we know that one of our ways to Champions League is to finish top of the league. We've done that before in our past, and it's about finding that consistency.
And the consistency is well documented. One thing that may have changed a little bit this year was your preseason, where you guys ended up making the trip down to Costa Rica. What did you kind of learn from this squad down there, and what are you bringing in from that time down in Costa Rica into the season?
Yeah, I think we looked at that component of the preseason in a variety of ways. One was, I think it's always important to be in the CONCACAF region, just kind of away from North America per se. With not playing in any continental competition, thought it was good to go down there and get some very good competition with teams like Saprissa, Cartagenes, the under-20 Costa Rican national team. We had 4 games down there training at Alajuelense's facilities. And increasing our ties in the region was also something very important. As we want to grow this league, we want to grow our presence in the region to hopefully attract some of the better players from the Central American region into our club. And we've had that with guys like Joshua Navarro, Omar Brownie. And then from the team component, I thought it was excellent. We wanted to make sure we're getting very competitive games against teams that are in mid-season form. And I think that gave us an excellent challenge to prepare us to kick off today.
And it's going to be a fun kickoff. In conversation with the head coach of Forge FC, Bobby Smyrniotis. And Bobby, you already mentioned James as one of the players that you brought in, but you brought in 2 others, one from Sigma and another one from the CF Montreal U23s in Kadeem Kane. What are these 3 players going to bring into the squad? And by the way, the Sigma player, Malcolm Duncan, obviously. What are these guys going to bring into the squad this year that you're really excited about?
I think when you look at all of them, they're very different in where they are. With Manjikar James, we're obviously getting a top central defender, a player who's got a lot of European experience, going back to a good 10 years. I think is when he left me over in Mississauga from Sigma FC to head over to Hungary. It's great to have him back, and it's just having a great leader and competitor on the field, and that's what he's shown coming into preseason. He's as hungry as ever to get himself enjoying his football, and we enjoy having him here. Then you look at a player like Malcolm Duncan. He's a player that's been training with our first team for the past couple of seasons as he was finishing his playing days at Providence and playing with Sigma in League One. A player I know very well, very versatile defender who's been excellent and actually made a few appearances with us last season. And then Kadeem is a talented young gentleman, a player we scouted, we watched quite a bit, brought him into preseason, and as a 17-year-old, I think if he does things right, he's got a very high ceiling, and I always love working with some young players who have a promising future.
You talk about your work with Sigma and the growth and the pathway that has kind of been formed with that club as well as Forge. How important is it for the clubs across the CPL to put those grassroots down? I know Forge this week announced 8 different youth club partnerships. How important is it to help grow this game across the country by doing that?
Well, I think it's massive. I think the one thing we haven't had in Canada and going into youth development, which I was involved in from 2005, is we really never had the top and the pinnacle of the game. Now we've got more professional clubs, and I think it's a duty of the professional clubs to provide the guidance underneath so that we excel what's happening in the youth development side of things. Obviously, Sigma has been a very important component to what we're doing at Forge, and going back to 2019, it's something that we wanted to make sure we've got an excellent blueprint in the Hamilton community. Obviously, launching a team, being a competitive team was our first goal. Go through a pandemic. Now we're at a stage where we've got a great partnership with our development club, Hamilton United, as well, and then the 8 partner clubs in the region. And I think this is us providing expertise where we can and just making sure we enhance the game and really work on the model of developing players in the Hamilton region as well.
In conversation with Forge FC head coach Bobby Smyrniotis. And Bobby, we've seen a lot of movement amongst the other clubs in the CPL, and they're taking shape and getting ready for this season as well. What has impressed you the most, or which club has impressed you the most with their off-season additions?
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think there's 2 teams that have kept more than 50% of the roster, and a lot of them, we've got Vancouver, who's a brand new team, but a lot of them have changed close to 50% of their teams. And teams have gone a little bit different than they have in the past. You look at a team like York United, who's traditionally looked at younger players and so on, and now they've become a more veteran team in the league with a lot of players who have had success playing in different clubs in the league. So I think that's going to make things very interesting, in these first few weeks. A lot of coaches and maybe players not knowing what to expect from the opponents, and I think that's great for the neutral fan and for the supporters of the clubs. But I think all across there's been some good moves amongst the clubs. Some very good players have left the league, but the one thing we've learned in this league is every year there's a handful to more players that we didn't know about the year before that end up becoming stars in this league, and that's what I'm looking forward to seeing.
It's so true. There always is that guy who surprises every single season. Quickly, I want to talk about your brother making a transition from Forge into the head offices of the league. How excited are you for him for the new opportunity, and what does it mean to have someone who came through the Forge system now being part of the league?
Yeah, I mean, he's a massive component to what we were doing here at Forge and how we built this team together. And I think it's important as this game grows. You know, the one thing we're going to see in all levels of the game is different people, different Canadians, coaches, players moving into different roles within this league, and that's what we're creating here. We're creating a massive infrastructure of football. He's a great mind who's been involved in youth football, managing players, running a club. So I think he's a great addition to the league to bring his expertise across the table. Hopefully, he doesn't give all of our opponents too many of our secrets.
That's hopefully for you guys, yeah. Last one before I let you go here. Obviously, big matchup to start the season. The quote-unquote biggest rivalry in the league now between you and Cavs, how it always ends up being you guys near the end. What do you make of this game, and what are you expecting from your squad?
Yeah, I think when you look at it, and just at its simplest level, you have two coaches who are still standing from year one here in the fifth year. I think it's two clubs that love to compete and hate losing, and I think that's what brings out the best in these games and makes them very entertaining over the years. And I expect something similar today. They're a team with quite a few changes in the depth of their group as well. But I think it's always an entertaining match, and it's always a good one to start the season off with.
Can't argue with that at all. I'm super excited to get this season started. Bobby, really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me, and keep up the great work.
Really appreciate that. Thank you, and good luck today.